The leap that MZ made was nothing short of staggering.
Now, you may not think that a man who designs knives and forks would be great company, but when I heard that Richard Seymour also designs motorbikes, my ears pricked up.
He's obviously a man who likes a challenge. This is the sports bike he created for East German manufacturer MZ. It's classy, futuristic, and a far cry from the previous MZ workhorses.
We smuggled it in to the NEC, and all the stands were there, all these very grand stands. There was MZ's stand. And we smuggled it up onto a podium at the last moment, stuck it out there under a cover. And then, voila, we pulled the cover off. And there was just silence, And within about 3 or 4 minutes, this massive crowd had actually formed around it. And I sort of ran around the back and ran around listening to what people were saying, and they tended to take the line of, bloody hell, what is this?
It's all very well making it look pretty, but what this bike needs is an in-depth road test.
Yes, that's nice.
Very in-depth.
My first reaction was one of, you've got to be crazy. It was an insanely short timescale, and we were equivocating over it. But what swung the issue really was, I'd always wanted to redesign an MZ, because they obviously needed it. The design brief was interesting in its spareness. It was, here is a Rotax 500cc engine, wrap a motorcycle around it. And that was basically it. The second was, could we try and make a modern version of the BSA big singles, like the Gold Star was all about? So we hit the ground running and ran like stink, and within 5 months we had the fully working prototype itself.
What you are getting here, though, is something which has very distinctive styling. It only has one cylinder, and the exhaust sound is beautiful. It really is. The other 600 sports bikes, there isn't really that much that makes one stand out from the other.
When we sat down to sketch the first bike ideas, I was scribbling away and did a bike that looked very light, almost as if it was standing on its fingertips, with its bum in the air. And we looked at it, we thought, that's a nice feel to the bike, but it looked like an insect. It looked like a scorpion.
A scorpion, which is, well, it's quite a far cry away from the dung beetle, which I suppose the rest of MZ bikes would perhaps...
That would be an uncharitable way of looking at it, yes. We wanted to create a bike that was light and had fewer parts. And one of the things that we looked at was making everything do two things. So on my original prototype, the frame was also the oil tank. And the frame, instead of being welded together, was actually glued together using modern aircraft adhesives. The idea being that you could make it completely fluid tight so the oil could be there, but also so no thermal stresses were introduced into the chassis while it's being put together, which of course welding does.
One thing that really does impress me with this bike is coming out of a corner, it's incredibly fast, even just from about 1,000 RPM. When you go into a corner, even braking, it's so tightly sprung that you don't actually notice any travel at all, which is quite good. It's incredibly flexible when you actually tuck it into curves. It really does behave itself.
So why get a designer involved and not an engineer?
I think there's a major public misconception about what a designer is and what an engineer is. In the motorcycle business, the designer is a fusion of engineer and aesthetic design. It's really the fusion of these two things together. And with a motorcycle, which is such an immediate and, you know, it is a machine, and you can see it's a machine, and how it's laid out mechanically is such an important part of its appeal. You can't separate the two. The thing you've got to really look at when you look at what MZ did is MZ jumped 50 years in 18 months a few years ago. And people often forget that. They somehow get the idea that, oh no, you just have to twiddle a few knobs and change a bit of this, change a bit of that, and you can do that, but you can't. The leap that MZ made when they put the Skorpion out was nothing short of staggering.